Alright, let's do something that fucking everybody hates. Let's talk about God. Feel free to click off because we are going to talk about God. And I am not talking about religion or, whatever, the right gods, the wrong gods. I am going to explain to you my experience with faith because I actually believe that because I wasn't looking for God, that's how I found it. And again, just click off if you roll your eyes at God. I would have clicked off fucking 4 years ago before I started healing from childhood sexual abuse, alcoholism, and suicide. I was, an intellectual, and I was just against the notion of religion. I didn't understand how I'm supposed to subscribe to Christianity when one of the biggest things Christianity is known for is priests molesting little boys. My trauma is sexual in nature. I really hit with that. That really impacted me that people even go to church when this is happening. Is that necessarily fair? Maybe not. However, that's how I feel. When it came to all the other religions, I've read all the books because I'm interested in it. I've read the Torah, I've read the Quran, I've read the Bhagavad Gita, the Upanishads. Like, I've got all the books on my fucking shelf behind me because I'm interested in this stuff. But that, to me, they're all pieces of the same story. They're all pieces. I think that every group of people has tried to put words to the same experience, and given different locations, different cultures, different time periods, those stories sound differently, but they all say the same thing. But this is my story on how I came to find faith when it was the last thing I was looking for, because I did not believe. I did not believe. I didn't want to believe. And I think that's why I figured it out. Maybe that's the wrong way to say it. That's why I found faith. I'll just say that. Here's what I did. And I invite you to do the same thing because I think it's probably the most legitimate way that you can actually develop faith. Because, quick side tangent, I think there's a difference between believing and having faith. I think it's easy to believe things. I think it costs you nothing to believe in stuff. I think most of the people that believe in their religions just believe. They don't have faith. They believe because either they were told to or because they feel like they're supposed to, and it costs them nothing, so they believe and they get whatever they get. Hopefully it's good. I'm not saying that's bad. I am saying there's a difference between belief and faith. Belief costs you nothing. It's a statement. It's a subscription. Not bad, not good. That's what I think. Faith is a lifeline that you can't understand, and it only works because you can't understand it. And inside of that understanding is the vulnerability, is the sacrifice, and the trust that creates legitimate faith. And that faith moves you towards courage, which moves you towards everything else. If I had to break down the human experience down to its core, I would say the most important thing you can do is learn to find faith, because faith breeds courage. Courage breeds a life of your dreams in all areas. But this is what I did. I actually found God in a very unconventional way, but in a way that actually makes sense to me. And I did it through physical suffering. Now, if you're a history person, you might think, oh, duh, like this is what everybody used to do back in the day. Yeah, that's kind of where I got the idea. But I didn't get it looking for God. I went looking for answers, and I ended up finding God. So what I mean is, in the first year of my recovery process, I didn't believe in anything. I didn't even know what to think or where to go. But I did know this. I did know a lot of people that I respect talk about doing really hard things. Again, roll your eyes if you want. If you're not into that message, that's fine. It really resonated with me. Do hard shit. Why? Because it proves to yourself you can do hard stuff. And that becomes proof that you can fall back on in the future for harder things that come. Made sense to me. But here's what I found that was very interesting. I am an extremist in all areas of life. And so when they say do hard stuff, I did the hardest things I could think of. Legitimately the hardest things I could think of. Because I wanted to know where my breaking point was. I know I've been strong-willed my entire life. I know I'm competitive. I know that I actually really want greatness, whatever that means to me. That's something that's important to me. I like the extreme side of life in all areas. And so When somebody told me, or multiple people said, do hard stuff, I'm like, okay, I'm going to do things that are so hard that I might not recover from them. They might break me. I want to know if I've already almost killed myself, I want to know what it takes. Because that didn't work. Because I'm still here. If suicide didn't work, what can? What can break me? Is it possible that there's nothing that could break me? And if that's true, does that mean that I am so much more powerful than I ever give myself credit for? Just saying. That can be a dangerous thought, but I'm just saying. So I started doing really hard shit. And you know, a great example of that is, again, roll your eyes, but it was dealing with cold water. Because cold water is one of those things, you know, even kind of before the cold plunge craze, like, you gotta be really interested in your own response to go continually seek out longer and longer durations to very cold water. Because very cold water is extremely uncomfortable. And I'm not talking about your 52 degrees cold plunge at your fucking local wellness club. I'm talking about it's negative 30 degrees outside in January in Wisconsin, and the wind chill's so bad that they close all the schools and tell people not to go outside without any facial covering because you will get frostbite if exposed to the air for longer than a couple minutes. And then my dumbass goes in Lake Michigan with my fucking big parka, and I got a whole system set up where my boots are ready, everything's ready so that I can shed my clothes, just be in a swimsuit and some water shoes, walk out into the half-frozen Lake Michigan in the middle of 30-degree weather in January, sit up to my fucking neck in cold water for 5 minutes, then get out, put all my shit on, and try to make it to the car in the parking lot before fucking some crazy shit happens in my body like frostbite or hypothermia. What does it take to do that? Well, A, you have to be fucking crazy, but B, you have to be looking for that breaking point. And this is where it ties back to God. When I would be in that water, and I really found God in the cold water, because I would get in the water and, you know, I would do the same thing in the water I did in the sauna, which was meditate, because I believe that presence is the most powerful state you can be in. If you're going to do something that's crazy difficult, the best you can be is the best you can be, which I believe is present. So I would do the same sort of meditative practice in the water that I would do in the sauna, because I was trying to access presence. So I'd be in the water, meditating, so that I could be present, and eventually I would get to the point where I would wonder, what am I doing this for? Why do I believe that this is worth it? And these are some of the most important questions I've ever asked in my entire life. Sitting in the water, freezing my fucking ass off, in dangerous conditions, like hypothermia, I'm far enough out in the water where if something goes wrong, like my fucking girlfriend's gonna have to come out after me, she's not acclimated to cold water, that could go wrong. Fucking both of us could be in a world of trouble, quickly, very quickly, and nobody's outside, and we're kind of away from the road. Like, this is not a smart place to be. So I'd be in the water, and I'm thinking, you know, why am I here? Not like alive, but in this water. Why am I doing this? What's the point? What am I trying to get out of this? Is there some sort of meaning? Like, what is the point? Why am I here? And I would ask these questions, and I wouldn't try to answer them. And that's the most important part. I would just ask the questions. I almost would like look up at the sky and just be like, what do I possibly expect to learn from this or get from this? And over time, through these exposures to cold water and everything else that I did that was difficult for no reason, I'd end up at the same point, asking to the skies, why am I doing this? What do I believe this is worth it for? And the key part was, I didn't answer those questions myself. I left it up to the answers to be revealed. And I started to hear a voice, and I don't mean a specific voice. I mean, like a thought would pop into my head that like wasn't my thought, and it wasn't like the same male voice with the same tonality and the same cadence of speech would pop into my ear, and it's like someone speaking to me. I don't mean that. I mean there was like a new voice in my head that would enter and like answer some of these questions, and I would be sitting in the water and just, why am I here? And you know, I'd get like, and I would be like, because you believe. It's like, well, what do I believe? And it's like, and then be silence, and it's like, you know, get little pieces, and then it would be like, you know, why am I, you know, what's the point? And it's like, the point is that you believe. And I'm like, what does that mean? Like, what does it mean to believe? And I said earlier that belief and faith are different. But I kept getting that response. And, it's because you believe. It's because you believe. It's because you believe. It's because you believe. I'll be in the middle of a mile of walking lunges in under an hour in hilly territory for no reason. I'm going to get halfway. I was going to stop at half a mile. Go the full mile. Took me an hour. Was sore for fucking 5 days. Could barely walk. What drove me to keep going? I didn't have to do it at all. Then I told myself a half mile. What made me do a full mile? It's like, why would I go a full mile? Because you believe. Believe what? You believe. And over time I began to understand that faith is belief in something you can't fully explain or understand. And because you can't explain it or understand it is the reason it's as strong as it is. Because it leaves room for you to be wrong. It leaves room for you to be crazy. It leaves room for you to be making this up in your head. And overcoming that and committing to the notion that you believe in something. And that commitment over time is what faith is to me. It's a commitment to belief in something that you can't understand or explain, but you know is true. And following that commitment wherever it prompts you, even if the prompt is so ridiculous, so unrealistic, so irrational, that every excuse in the world makes perfect sense, but yet it's the same tug, it feels the same way, kind of sits the same way in your brain, doesn't give you any outs, doesn't give you any explanation, just kind of, it's a tug, it's a calling, that's why they call it that. It's this little tug, and you're like, it's the same tug for all these different things, and I'm going to follow it. Why? I have no idea. I believe. Believe what? I don't know, but I believe. And that tug, following that tug, has led me through all the most difficult experiences in my recovery process. And I believe it's the thing that gives me the peace that I have today. Because if all else fails, at least I believed in what I believed. At least I had faith in what I believed. And you might look at me and say, but that's nothing. You can't even say what that is. And I would say that's exactly why it's everything. Because I have to sacrifice my understanding. I have to give up the notion that I'm right. I have to give that up. I have this book. It's called Scary Faith. If you like to read, I suggest you read it. It's about a Christian pastor. I don't care if it was a Muslim, whatever, or fucking, I don't give a fuck who it was. That message, there's a story actually in the Bible. Yes, I know there's different books. They all have stories. I think you should read all of them. But one of the best stories for this specific video is and I'm going to butcher the story, but in the Bible, I don't know, there's a fucking lake and there's a boat, and then one of the fucking people, or John or Peter, or whoever the fuck, is in the boat, and here it's a storm. And he hears the voice of Jesus, again, I don't believe in Jesus, but it's the story. And Jesus, says, come to me. And fucking Peter or John, whoever the fuck, is like, but I can't, I'm in the water, I'm in a boat, if I step over the edge, I'll drown, it's a storm. A silence, there's no response. And it's just, again, it's like, come to me. And so then, the story is about whoever the fuck it is in the boat is like, has this internal struggle over rationalization that you can't walk on water as a human, it's a storm, you'll drown and die, and it's dark, and you can't even see where the voice is coming from, or what the voice actually is, and yet, something compels him to believe, and he steps over the boat, and he walks on water over to Jesus, and Jesus is basically like, what the fuck, like, you had no faith, like, what do you mean, what are you doing? And the point of that story that I always thought was impactful was that that's exactly what faith is. It's not knowing, not understanding, having it be irrational, and then taking the step over the boat. The leap of faith. That's why they call it a leap of faith, because you're not supposed to be able to make the leap. You ever see the fucking Indiana Jones movie, the third one? Humans aren't supposed to make the leap. So why did the person make the leap? Because the faith was there. Now, it's not a real example that somebody didn't make that jump in real life. It's metaphorical, but it actually can be realistic in the sense that you can make these giant leaps in your life that you don't have the strength to make, but you only have the strength with faith. And faith, I think, is best discovered when you put yourself in situations that are extremely difficult and make you question everything about what it is that you're doing. And you being open to just asking the questions. And even if you're angry, even if you're frustrated, even if you're desperate, in fact, maybe better so, because when you're that desperate and you ask those questions, you're so desperate you're not trying to answer them yourself. You're genuinely giving up your understanding to something you don't understand. And that's faith, because it's not, you can't explain it. And I think that's a missing piece for a lot of people, is we're such a masculine-oriented modern world that needs proof and studies and science and experiments and social proof and more and more. Proof. We need proof. Faith doesn't come with proof. Faith is only faith because there's the absence of proof. And that's why you will never prove the existence of God, in my opinion, because then it would cease to have the power that it does, if it's even real. Again, I don't know, but I believe. That's the point. So if this makes sense to you, my message is, do hard things that force you to a breaking point and ask yourself, to the sky or to yourself, why it is you're doing what you're doing, what the fuck you could possibly expect to get out of this, what's the meaning, what's the point, why are you here, and listen for answers. They're not always going to come. They're not always going to come. Most of the time it's silence. Most of the time it is silence. But it is your commitment over time that breeds enough sacrifice of understanding that room for faith can slip in. Room for belief can slip in. It's God, baby. It's confusing, and most people, I don't even know if this message is going to be received well at all. People might call me crazy, whatever it is. I don't give a fuck. This shit worked for me, and it was the most transformational thing that ever happened to me. So, yeah, if you want to find God, fucking go suffer for it, and don't think you're going to understand it.